Hi boys, girls, welcome back. If you hit the CC, it's on the bottom corner of your screen, it says closed caption. That'll bring up the words on the bottom of the screen for you to read along. As well, keep an eye out and ear out for metaphors, similes, any other figurative language you can find. Let's continue now with chapter 3 of I, Freddy. I'm now going to tell you about great-grandmother. I could claim to be doing so because I just dreamt about her, but that would be a lie. I'm doing so because this strikes me as the best place for it. Great-grandmother often told me, "Stop your nonsense, youngster!" She would say this to any young hamster that was horsing around in the cage, but she meant something different every time. She said it to me more than most, though, and by nonsense, she meant my everlasting questions. I was a pretty bright kid from the start, as I've already mentioned, and types like me tend to ask questions. What's more, we get far too few answers to suit us. Fortunately for me, however, great-grandmother took me under her wing, if I can put it that way, since she's a hamster. My first brush with her occurred during saga hour. Saga hours are held in every cage inhabited by young hamsters. An old female hamster tells them the saga, which is something akin to the golden hamster's Bible. Someone passes it on by word of mouth from generation to generation, and in our cage, that someone was great-grandmother.
"Now pay attention, all of you," said great-grandmother as she began. She spoke in a hoarse whisper, which made it sound really exciting. We all hunkered down in the litter at the bottom of the cage, cheek by jowl, and listened with hearts pounding. "In the beginning," said great-grandmother, "was the Golden Trinity, 3 golden hamsters who were abducted from the promised land of Assyria and carried off into captivity. And behold, the Golden Trinity swiftly multiplied and developed into a vast race of golden hamsters, and they spread throughout the world so that today every golden hamster on earth is descended from the Golden Trinity."
"But great-grandmother," I said, "what about the golden hamsters in the promised land of Assyria who weren't caught? They must have had babies too, right?" No matter how good the story, I could never turn off my brain completely.
"Stop your nonsense, youngster, and remember this. The saga is unalterable. You don't question it, you simply listen to it. Understand?"
"Yes, but I..."
"Hold your tongue!"
I was alarmed to see that great-grandmother had flattened her ears and bared her teeth. Quickly I started to clean my fur. That's a surefire way of telling an older, stronger hamster you're as harmless as a newborn baby. Although great-grandmother eyed me sharply, she seemed to have calmed down now. "And now," she went on, "I'll tell you all what Assyria is like." She went on to say about the promised land, and it had soil in abundance. It was neither too firm nor too loose and contained no stones, so you could dig tunnels to your heart's content without ever coming up against any bars or wire mesh. And the soil was full of earthworms 10 times more delicious than the most succulent mealworms. Fragrant fruit and all manners of grain and vegetables grew above ground at every season of the year in such plenty that you could safely do away with the need to hoard them. If you did wish to do so, however, you could dig a storage chamber as big as the pet shop. The quality of the soil in the land of Assyria was so good that this presented absolutely no problem. I must confess, my mouth started watering, and my paws itched and twitched. Even now, however, I couldn't turn off my brain. Why, I wondered, was she making such a song and dance about this Assyria place? Great-grandmother described the delights of Assyria a while longer. For instance, you didn't need a treadwheel there because you could run straight ahead for days on end. Then she said, "Now, youngsters, pay attention. I'm coming to the point." Her voice had suddenly changed. She was no longer whispering. Her tone was almost excellent. One wonderful day, she declared, all the golden hamsters in the world would be released from captivity and led back to the promised land of Assyria. Then, Golden Hamster Liberation Day, which every golden hamster dreamed of, would dawn at last. "Youngsters," said great-grandmother, "rejoice!" And rejoice my fellow hamsters did. They leaped into the air, squeaking and cavorting. I joined in too, I must admit. For one thing, because I couldn't sit still with all those acrobatics going on, and for another, because I was overcome, like the rest, by a strange feeling of elation, but also by the urge to ask a rather awkward question. The others calmed down and once more seated themselves in the silence among the wood shavings. But I found it quite impossible to sit still. The awkward question had somehow lodged in my hindquarters, propelling them to to and fro like a hamster's miniature swing. Then I caught a piercing glance from the great-grandmother that instantly brought my hindquarters to a standstill. "Pay attention, you!" We were now in the know, she told us. That was not only a great blessing, but a duty as well. A duty to yearn for the great day with every fiber of our being. Indeed, down to the very tips of our whiskers. Great-grandmother concluded Saga Hour with the following words. "So, hold yourselves permanently in readiness for Golden Hamster Liberation Day. And now, you rascals, go off and play." The other young hamsters trooped off, squeaking and vociferating to resume their stupid trials of strength. Me, I continued to sit there defiantly. I refused to be brushed off just like that, although I couldn't cast doubt on the saga. I had plenty of other questions to ask. Great-grandmother looked across at me, then beckoned me. "Unless I'm mistaken, youngster, you've got some more questions about Saga. Awkward questions, I suspect." When I nodded mutely, she said, "All right, out with them." But I thought, "No, feel free, we're alone now." She smiled. "It never occurred to anyone to question the Saga as a rule, you know. But now and again a thinker comes along and thinkers have to get it out of their system. So, speak."
I couldn't afford to miss this opportunity, so I concentrated hard. "First," I said, "I've got a question about Golden Hamster Liberation Day. I can't quite picture it. I mean, how could all the golden hamsters in the world flock to Assyria in a single day? How is that possible?"
"No idea." "Huh? You mean you don't know yourself?" "Precisely." But another thing, who's going to organize Golden Hamster Liberation Day? I mean, someone will have to do it, but who?" "Search me." I was flabbergasted. Imagine that. A suspicion took root in my mind now. But the promised land of Assyria," I said. "That exists, right?" "Not a clue." But great-grandmother, what a thing to say. You mean the whole Golden Hamster saga is just a kind of fairy tale? But I'm still expected to believe in it? "Why not? A person can believe in fairy tales." She cleared her throat. "No, to be honest, I'm inclined to disbelieve it myself." "Inclined to? Was the old lady trying to string me along?" "In that case," I said, with a touch of boldness, "why sell us this fairy tale of a saga at all?" "Listen to me, youngster." Great-grandmother was deadly earnest now. "Golden hamsters are rather disagreeable creatures by nature. They're crotchety, snappish, and greedy. They'll hoard food for themselves alone. They'd begrudge their neighbors the rind off of a piece of cheese, and sometimes they bite each other to death. I speak from personal experience." She paused for a moment. "They need something to hold them in the cheek. They need something to hold them in check. Something to remind them that their neighbors are hamsters like themselves. Something, for example, that every golden hamster believes in. They need the Golden Hamster Saga." She looked at me. "Now, do you understand?" I nodded. Of course I understood. It was quite simple. The saga was a bite blocker. Great, but somehow less than satisfactory. "And what about this liberation from captivity? I mean, will it really happen someday?" I asked. "Ah, that's just a dream anyway. What would be the point? Living conditions inside a cage aren't too bad. Besides, how could it be arranged?" Were living conditions inside a cage were concerned, I could have reminded her of the girl who was as dirty as a guinea pig and as lazy as a neutered tomcat. But I didn't. I confined myself to her second question. "If you don't know how to arrange something," I said, "it may mean you haven't given it enough thought." Great-grandmother stared at me for quite a while. Then she said, "You're right." "There must be some way to escape," I said, swaying my shoulders, "and I'm going to find it." "Now, youngster, stop your..." Great-grandmother smiled suddenly. "If anyone can do it, you can. Don't stop your nonsense. Get on with it."
Did you hear any figurative language? Here's a couple that stood out to me. Great-grandmother took me under her wing. That's an idiom, talking about how great-grandmother took care of young Freddy. You're as harmless as a newborn baby. Well, that's a comparison using like or as, so that's a simile. And towards the end, reminded her of the girl who was as dirty as a guinea pig and as lazy as a neutered tomcat. Another simile. Thanks for listening. Check back tomorrow for Chapter 4. Bye for now.